This episode is brought to you by HASA. Liquid is clearly better. Liquid chlorine is the highest purity, works immediately, has no added cyanuric acid or calcium, and it will leave your pool safe, clean, and clear. And by the Bottom Feeder professional grade battery powered vacuum system. It sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off with code DVB100.
This episode is brought to you by Skimmer, the #1 pool service software in North America. With Skimmer, you can streamline your schedule, grow your revenue, and keep your customers coming back with 5-star service. Whether you're a one-person operation or an established team, Skimmer is your partner in success. Visit getskimmer.com/poolguy to try Skimmer for free for 30 days.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to talk to you about renovating your pool. I'm going to talk from a pool pro perspective. So if you have customers on your route thinking about renovating, or if you're thinking about renovating, I think you're going to find a lot of great benefits from listening to this podcast here, where I go over some of the pros and cons of a renovation process. Are you a pool service pro looking to take your business to the next level? Join the Pool Guy coaching program. Get expert advice, business tips, exclusive content, and get direct support from me. I'm a 35-year veteran in the industry. Whether you're starting out or scaling up, I've got the tools to help you succeed. Learn more at swimmingpoollearning.com. It goes without saying that the biggest con, of course, is that the renovation process has really gone up in price. The cost has probably gone up 5 times what it cost 3 or 4 years ago, mainly because of inflation, yes, but also there's some industry precedents that happened. There was a big boom in building during COVID, where, of course, supply and demand was a factor. More people wanted pools built, and the material suppliers saw this, and the demand went up on their end, which means that the material was finite. There were stories of people not having rebar available, or the material for the plaster, Pebble Tech, things like that. PVC plumbing was one big thing that was really short in stock. And then manufacturers could not keep up with the equipment that the builders were ordering. The cost of fuel, labor, and all the other outlying factors means that remodeling your pool is going to cost a lot more money than it did even 2 years ago, but definitely more than 4 years ago. I'm not saying that there's a rush to get started because each year it gets more expensive. I think things have leveled out somewhat to where you have time to consider it. But if you do pool service and you notice that your customer needs a remodel, you could tell usually there's some telltale signs. I think the first one is if the plaster itself is compromised, if there's cracks in the plaster, water's leaking. That's kind of an immediate remodel within the next 6 months to a year, maybe sooner depending on how much water is being lost and how much money you're losing as the customer with the extra water bill, extra chemical costs for the pool service. I talked about this before, that if you are maintaining a pool with a leak, the customer needs to be paying for the extra chlorine you're putting in the pool, and it's something that you can absorb as a company. Also, if the plaster has pits in it, cracks, chips, that's a good starting point for algae to form. And plaster that's chipping only has one resort, which is replastering, because the chipping is going to get worse. There's going to be white plaster dust in the filter. It's going to be just a total mess to maintain that pool, and it's something that needs to be addressed. Again, you have a time period. Nothing is immediate, I don't think, unless the pool's leaking 3 inches of water a day or something crazy like that. And I wouldn't rush into remodel. So don't feel any pressure to remodel within that month. It's not something that usually is that time sensitive. In my opinion, there's really not a case I've run into where it has to be done immediately. So there's time to think about it and to get bids. Now, where do you get the bids from? This is another problem or question I get all the time. Now, if you're a pool service pro, you should have at least 2 or 3 companies that you know that do remodeling in your area that you can refer to your customers. I have 2 really good two really good companies in my area that I constantly refer to people that ask me, who remodels in Los Angeles, Orange County, San Bernardino County. Those are the areas that I work in, or I know people that remodel in. And I refer them, those people, because you've seen their work, you trust them. Not necessarily do you get a kickback, but it is customary to get a referral fee when you refer someone for a remodel job. But that's not the main intent. The main intent is to refer someone to the customer that's going to get a good job. Now, if you don't know anyone, I would really not go looking for someone to refer to the customer, because then now you're the middleman and you don't want to be that person. So if you do know somebody, you can refer them to the customer confidently. Refer them to the customer. If you know nobody, let the customer go out there and do their own search. Now, what about pricing? Well, the bids were going to come in all different ranges. Some builders will kind of price in for things that are going to happen, and so their bid's going to be higher automatically. Other builders will price it for whatever they're bidding, and then you as the customer have to kind of pad that bid by at least 20%. It's like this with anything you do, whether you're remodeling a bathroom, a kitchen, whatever you're doing to your property, there's that 20% that's going to need to be added to any bid or things that happen or things that the builder is going to find that need to be replaced as well. So if you get a bid for $35,000, you definitely want to add 20% to that. So that would be $7,000. And so realistically, that $35,000 bid is actually $42,000, and things can go even higher. If things go lower, great, you're within that range of the bid. But there's always going to be something that happens, like if you get a bid and then the builder's like, hey, it'd be cool if you had a salt system. Well, that wasn't in the original bid, and he has on $2,000 for that. Or he may be doing the remodel and realize that your pool lights are no good. Hey, your pool lights are really old, and when I put everything back together, they may not function, and here's the price for the new lights. All these things are things that really happen out there. And of course, another thing, I'll back up a little bit. You want to make sure that the builder is a licensed contractor. Now, I've had customers hire people that were not licensed contractors. In fact, one of the weirdest ones that I can remember is a customer that had an Infinity Edge pool built. And this pool was built by what they thought was a reputable builder. And this is not a remodel, by the way. This is actually talking about a build here. But they went to remodel it with a reputable company as well, because the wall was leaking. The pool just needed a new facelift. So when the remodeler went into the city to get the permits, or to put the permits in for the remodel and to check on the overall plans for the actual original pool build, there was nothing at the city. So the person that actually built this Infinity Edge pool never pulled permits. And I asked the customer, did you ever see people coming out to inspect the pool? And the customer said, well, I don't have any experience with this. I'd never even thought about it. I don't think I saw anybody come out to inspect each stage of the pool. So of course, when you get the permits pulled by the city, every stage of the build, you're going to have someone come out to check the foundation. They check the dig site first, the hole they dug. Then they check the rebar. Then they check the plumbing, electrical. All those are stages where someone comes out and checks all that. And that's important because you have to pull the permit so that there's a record with the city. And of course, the city is going to reassess the property with that improvement. A pool is an improvement. So the permits are important. And the Pool Guy Podcast Show has teamed up with UPA to bring you affordable, reliable liability insurance starting at just $64 a month. Get up to $2 million in coverage, and the members of my coaching group get an even lower rate. Protect your business and your peace of mind. Sign up with UPA today by clicking the link in the podcast description. Back to not using someone who is a licensed contractor. This person hired somebody that was not a licensed contractor, and it's weird, but half the pool is like a gray plaster, and 1/4 of the pool is like a really dark gray plaster. Then there's like a distinct area where it changes colors. So I asked the customer, hey, is that how you wanted your pool designed? 2 different color plasters? And he said, well, the person I hired, they were doing the plaster and they actually ran out of the dye they were using when they were plastering it. And so they had to quickly find another dye. And obviously it's not the same color because the dye they used for the plaster was different. And the customer was not happy with that. So I said, well, why don't you contact him and tell him you want some money back, or maybe the state, if he's contractors have a bond. He's like, well, he wasn't a contractor. He's someone I just found that would do it. So no recourse really at that point, which is sad because you really do want to hire someone licensed who's done this before. And that's why I recommend, if you're going to refer someone to a customer, is someone that you've known, you've seen their work before, I would suggest to customers that are looking for bids, get 3 good bids, do their due diligence with the reviews, and pick a company not necessarily based on the lowest price, but based on who has the best performance in the industry. The lowest price is not necessarily your best bet in getting a project done correctly. And I would question some of the lower pricing. They may pad things later or add things to it later. And again, the 20% may go up to like 30 or 40% if someone gives you a really low bid. They don't include everything that's necessary. So of course, when the remodeler comes out there, he's going to tell you exactly what you need, how far of a remodel you need to do. Now there are some, I guess I'll just do another one that's kind of shady. It can be done, but it's usually not the industry standard. But there was a member of my group in Houston that referred someone to a customer. Again, the danger of referring someone who was doing a replaster. But what they did is they just overlaid the old plaster with the new plaster. Now this can be done, but in most cases they're going to jackhammer the old plaster out and get down to the bottom. But one thing he noticed about this job that they did is that the plaster came up to the pool and it doesn't match the tile line. There's like a 1/2 inch gap between the tile and new plaster. A big problem because it doesn't look great. And it looks like someone just, put another layer on, like when you put another layer of shingles on your roof. Not the best thing, but there are some industry standards. So make sure that you know the industry standards. Typically in my area, they'll jackhammer the old plaster down, fix any rebar, patch anything that needs to be patched. Usually they're going to replace the lights. Usually you're going to replace the tiles. There's different levels of remodeling you can do, but the most standard remodel in my area is new tile, new plaster, jackhammer down, and new light fixtures. And then you have to go a little, depending on your budget, what you want to do with the equipment. I always think that if the equipment's 20 years old, just go ahead and tear the whole entire pad out and start over. Sometimes even plumbing it differently is better. But if your equipment is 20 years old, why not spend the extra money to redo the entire pad? That way you have basically a brand new pool. You have a pool with brand new plaster or PebbleTech, brand new tile. The coping sometimes is still good, but sometimes you want to change it. You could do that as well. Again, everything is a different level and everything is going to cost you more money. So the closer you get to having basically the remodel be a new pool build, basically, it's going to raise your price to the cost of a new pool build. Now, I wouldn't say you're going to need to do all of that, and depending on your budget, typically the remodels are done because the surface is just worn out. The PebbleTech has cracks in it. The plaster has chips and cracks in it. It feels rough. It's just at its lifespan's end. Staining's in there. There's a lot of different problems with the plaster, or surface, I should say, and you want to redo the surface. So that's like the basic remodel. Replastering the pool, not redoing the tiles, not redoing the coping, not redoing the equipment. And that may be the level that you want to do, but then you may want to do a secondary level, which I think would be logical, which would be replacing the tiles with a different tile choice, because a 20-year-old tile choice is not going to match a now tile, if that makes sense. And if you have some damaged tiles that are cracked or discolored, chances of them matching that tile is pretty tough unless you have some spare ones in your garage. They'll probably never be able to match that tile from 20 years ago. So retiling may be necessary in a lot of cases. You can do some major things too. Let's say you just have a pool, you don't have an attached spa. they can actually add one of those for you. It's not something that can't be done. So think about that too, that if you just have a pool or you never had an attached spa, if you want that, they can definitely do that. Again, you're heading into territory that's more like a new build versus a remodel, but you can do it. It's not something that I have not seen done, or that I have not seen someone who can't do it. No matter what configuration your pool is, they can either add a spa attached to it or a spa separate, but using the system or using their own system, but that can be done. Let me touch on changing surface types a little bit, because a lot of the remodels are from an older plaster pool, and you may be considering going with quartz or going with Pebble Tech. And it's one of those things where I would suggest, if you have the budget, really look at going with a surface type that's a little bit more permanent, like quartz or pebble finish. It's definitely a higher level of surface. You're going to get a longer lifespan. It's going to look nicer. And all around, I think you're going to like getting a more premium surface type. Or you may just want to get white plaster again. It just, it's up to you. But I would say that if you had the budget for it, maybe price in a better surface type at this time. And when you do that, of course, you're going to have to change the tile, because your tile only matches the white plaster pool, basically. It won't match whatever you're doing new to the pool at this point. And then the next level would be to think about replacing the equipment. Again, I've seen this happen all the time. It's one of those things where someone remodels their pool. I've even seen someone remodel their pool and put in a new skimmer, because the old skimmer was really old, from the 1960s or 70s. Looks great. I mean, the pool looks great. New skimmer, new tile, sometimes new coping, new plaster, new surface type. But then you go over to the equipment, and the equipment is still like from the 80s. You have a really old filter and pump, really old heater. Now, not necessarily will this affect a new pool build, but it's logical that if you're going to go through all that trouble to do that, you might as well put in new equipment while you're doing that, so that everything is brand new. You don't have to worry about anything. New equipment is more efficient, better in most cases than the old equipment, especially the heaters. They have a smaller footprint. It's going to look cleaner, and it'll probably add to any resale value that you may want if you're going to resell your house. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with a realtor to take over a pool, and the pool looks beautiful. They did a fabulous job with the remodel. And then I get to the equipment, and I'm scratching my head thinking, it just would be, if they're selling the house, they might as well have just done the new equipment and did all of that. But, the old equipment's patched, limping together. I had one that actually failed the inspection because the time clock was so old, the box was all rusted, and there was no shield for the, so you can't get shocked in there. And it actually failed the inspection with a brand new, beautiful looking pool. So it doesn't make any sense not to replace the equipment when you can at the time, especially if you are thinking about selling in the future, or considering your resale value, or just considering the convenience of having new equipment. It's just the way to go all the way for that. Now, there are some things you may want to consider putting in if you're doing a remodel that you don't have currently. I mentioned putting in an attached spa. That's a good idea, I think, in a lot of cases. What you can also do is put in an in-deck autofill. A lot of times your pool's older and there's no in-deck autofill. You definitely want to put that in while they're remodeling the pool. It should be pretty easy for the builder to do. Some customers I've had put in pressure side cleaner lines. I've had that happen as well, where they had a suction cleaner and they didn't like it and they wanted to put a pressure cleaner line in. That can easily be done by the builder as well. I mentioned updating the skimmer. This comes in handy if it has a really old skimmer. So the remodeling person or the company doing the remodel should be able to give you kind of, the highest level of remodel equipment, maybe new coping, new tile, new surface, anything you need to add to the pool, autofill line, and then he'll give you the kind of B level, new surface type, maybe new coping and new tile, and then he'll give you the C level, which is just basically new surface. I would say new surface and maybe new tile, and those are all different levels. So whatever your budget's for, regardless, if you just stay with the basic new surface type, nothing else, your pool is going to be a lot better off, especially if you have those symptoms I mentioned, really bad staining, any kind of rebar coming through, chips in the plaster, cracks in the plaster, a pretty bad pool leak. That will solve the problem by resurfacing it and fixing the leak. but you do need to use a licensed contractor. I mentioned that pool that had the 2 different colors earlier of color plaster. There was also another problem that I noticed. Well, there was 2 problems with that pool. One problem was it wasn't level, so it was actually, when they remodeled it, I don't know what they did, but the pool was not as level as the previous pool, which is kind of weird. But there was also a leak that was found later inside one of the spa jets. They remodeled it, they didn't glue it properly, and it was really hard to get to. They had to actually chip out the plaster of the pool to get to this jet and the tile line. And so the pool looks like a really Frankenstein project. You have 2 different colored plaster, and you have an area where they had to chip out the side of the pool to fix that spa jet, and the tile looks different as well. And then the pool is not quite level when you look at it. I mean, it's weird, but hey, they didn't hire a licensed contractor, and that's kind of what you get when you try to save money. So definitely the person doing the remodel needs to have a license and be bonded with the state, and you want to get at least 3 bids so that you can get a good idea if they're all within the ballpark of what you're looking for. And then, of course, add 20% to whatever bid you get, because that's kind of going to be the real price of the project when everything is said and done. If you're looking for other podcasts, you can, of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Monday through Friday, I'll have a podcast there for you. Or you can go to my website, swimmingpoollearning.com. On the banner, click on the podcast icon. There'll be a drop-down menu of over 1,700 podcasts for you there as well. And if you're interested in the coaching program, you can learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. This episode is brought to you by HASA, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. The bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system, portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.